All right. So we're going to get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to our CDS Lab RCN webinar series. And I'm very excited to have Eugene to give us our next talk. And Jeffrey is one of our co-PIs, will introduce the speaker. Jeffrey, I'll pass the ball to you.
Thank you. I'm really pleased to introduce Eugene Kwok. Eugene, I've known for a long time. He's got a very interesting background, which he'll get into regarding food. But before that, he has a long and rich career in some of the leading architecture and urban design firms in New York, from Datner to Cook Fox, and has been involved in some very important projects in New York City. We were very fortunate to have, through connections that we both, circles that we both operate in, which is through the Columbia University Urban Design Program, where I used to teach. Eugene, I invited Eugene to teach in the New York Institute of Technology, New York Tech Urban Design Program that I've been directed for 8 years. And Eugene pretty much built a seminar that was really successful in the program called Digital Modeling for Urban Design. And it's really about storytelling, but using the kinds of tools and techniques, advanced tools and techniques in urban design to tell a narrative, to really unpack some of the complex and overlapping issues that urban designers, planners, policymakers face in the context of a city like New York. And you will see that he has put those same skills to the test in the current work that he's doing through his SUNY Farmingdale role, but even more in the kind of important advocacy work that he's doing around the relationship between food and the region. And the work that we're doing with the RCN through the NSF grant is around food, energy, and water. And I feel like food is a complex system to wrap our arms around. And Eugene brings a very unique perspective to this through his own time and investment, personal investment in the actual farming process. And he'll get into that, but it's very interesting how he has really tried to learn and, an entire, learn about the system of farming and the kinds of issues that farmers face in the New York region, and how to strengthen the relationships between the farming communities and the population centers. So with that, I want to welcome Eugene Kwok to present to us today. So welcome, Eugene, and thank you for coming.
Well, thank you, Jeffrey and Cecilia, for an amazing introduction. I'm really delighted to present my work to the wider audience. I really thank you for that opportunity. So my project, Together, I want to present to you the overall sort of thinking process, what I've really went through personally, as well as some of the snapshots of my own experience. And many of you could probably resonate and relate to this because I live in the city, but for a long time I've been actually wanting to get out of the city and connect with nature. And I took an interest of the food system living in the center of the culinary scene in New York City. And I wanted to look at the upstream in the production and what the issues are, challenges are, and try to identify those and possibly create a new and unique system or solutions that architects as a designers can bring to the farming community and the region. So I know this is a city as lab, but I want to actually take you on a short excursion out to the Hudson Valley region from New York City. And mainly I want to discuss three different topics today. If I can just go to the next one. This is more of a personal sort of empirical and qualitative knowledge that I gained through joining different organizations, volunteering, speaking with people. So less of sort of quantitative or metric-based data. It's soaking in different information from different relationships that I built. And also I used just a basic USDA census data to really formulate my thinking process and to identify different problems and finally defining the mission-driven project as an architect, designing something with my skill set and provide an ecosystem for something that benefits both agriculture community as well as the city dweller like myself. So my journey really starts from New York City. I lived in this amazing city for about 16 years, and I really enjoy the city life, and I still do. But it was always a love-hate relationship. Sometimes I want to get out of the city and really enjoy nature, and just living in this concrete jungle, sometimes it drains you. So I wanted to have that balanced lifestyle, and Central Park is great, but it's sometimes not good enough. And as Jeffrey was mentioning, that I used to work for Cook Fox Architects, one of the leading sustainable and green architects in New York City, and they had an amazing outdoor space with outdoor garden and apiary and testing out different urban agriculture. And I was really inspired by their drive to build a healthy building and also provide a healthy environment for people as well. And the center of that design motto is the biophilia. Human beings, we have innate desire to want to connect with nature, and when we do, we feel great. So I wanted to take that as one of my design ideas in the future. Also, at the same time, New York is a really great place where you can access a local fresh food through green markets. And Union Square Market is really blocks away from my own home. My wife introduced this amazing market because I started cooking. I was interested in food. And she said, you have to go there and support local community there. And these fresh ingredients, I really cannot describe with my words. It's an amazing produce from local New York region. And I wanted to further investigate in the regional scale, what food systems would look like, and especially the production aspect. And during that time, I was reconnected with one of my colleagues from Colombia. He actually went down to Louisiana in his hometown, New Iberia, and started a nonprofit organization called Envision the Berry, where he uses urban farming and art performance and green market to really rejuvenate really distressed low-income community. And I was really, really inspired by his nonprofit effort. And one day he asked me to design one of those community gardens. And I said, yes, I will definitely do it. And I'll even go down to Louisiana and help you build this. So this is one of the designs. He had this grant. It wasn't a lot of budget. And this is a 30 feet by 30 feet series of raised beds with seating areas. And I was really envisioning this to be a community gathering place. Maybe it's a place for education. We have really interesting shapes, so it may inspire people. And also has the center of this is the hydroponic pool. And people can learn about different technologies that goes into growing food. So I did go down to Louisiana and help with the local volunteers. It was an amazing labor force. They were really enthusiastic about building this. So it really came together as a great design. And this particular community really had limitations to fresh food access. And by seeing the root of the food, especially growing their own food and knowing where our food comes from for the children, is just really transforming the community. And by seeing that in person, and my friend actually shared many of the photos, and I was really invigorated and inspired by this. So I really wanted to take this idea and brought it back home to New York City. And I wanted to learn more about urban farming and possibly rural and soil-based farming as well. And great thing about New York is that there are a lot of resources in terms of urban farming, different technologies. So this is one of the workshops that I attended called Green Homes NYC, had a great panel introducing what they do. Farm School NYC is really famous for training people and growing food in New York. Same thing with one on the right side is Eden Works, basically just focusing on aquaponics and hydroponics and supplying it to different vendors. Also, another great organization called City Growers. They have annual conference, really focuses on beginning farmers or gardeners who are interested in urban farming. And through that, I was able to meet someone from Department of Education from New York City who are partnering with Cornell Cooperative Extension. And they have this amazing environmental study center that has hydroponics and aquaponics, showcasing what an educational component can integrate with these amazing system in urban agriculture. And also during that time, I really wanted to extend myself to the regional production site. So one place that I knew before getting into this was Stone Barns Center for Food and Agriculture. And in the middle of it, there's a really famous Michelin star restaurant called Blue Hill, found by Dan Barber, a world famous chef. And this organization was endowed by many of the philanthropists with the funding to train young farmers, and at the same time open this up to general public and educate the general public and raise awareness about the local farming and produce. And they do have a volunteering program, so I signed up and I said I want to go through a season and learn what it is like to grow food and to become a farmer. So I did go through that, and volunteering is very labor intensive, and majority of the times is all about weeding and moving dirt, moving rocks. Wasn't romantic and fun as I expected. Volunteering is basically very labor intensive, and this is a shot that I took trellising in the field, and sometimes it's really fun, like harvesting, and I get to taste really an amazing produce. And one of the really nice thing out in the field is that there are many people with different backgrounds volunteering because of their love for food and agriculture. So the field was with different chefs from Blue Hill and different volunteers, and was an amazing time at Blue Hills. And I really wanted to schedule myself for volunteering along with the free workshops that Stone Barns provide to general public. So this is where I first encountered about the no-till system regenerative farm. Also learned about the challenges of young farmers going through the land access issues. The soil health workshop. So we're actually out in the field. Also composting is very important. So there was another workshop on composting, as well as the mechanical equipment. It's very important to know how to maintain your equipment. So the slide on the left side is showing the two-wheeler walk behind tractor, how to maintain things. So I was really trying to think of myself as, what if I actually start a farm and to become a farmer? And more I go through this, I was like, oh man, I can never be a farmer because there are too many things that I need to be good at. Um, And there is another shot of an amazing organization uh, called Glenwood. Glenwood is a nonprofit organization in Hudson Valley region, also training many of the farmers. They have numerous different programs that helps out local community. Partner with Grow NYC. They're the folks who are responsible for farmers market in New York City, and they have farm roots program. So anyone who is interested in becoming a farmer, you can actually sign up. They review the application, and you can become a farmer trainee. And I was able to hitch a ride from them and go up to Hudson Valley region and learn about all about the soil health. And this is a really amazing shot. And they had a livestock workshop, and this was at Glenwood. And I was really amazed by different farmers, especially the livestock. Beautiful scenery and a beautiful place. And they do open up to general public. Uh, Obviously, it was prior to COVID. And also during that time, Cornell Cooperative Extension offers this great program called SPAT, Suffolk Project in Aquaculture Training. My other interest, other than the agriculture, was aquaculture, and especially being in New York. Historically, New York used to have really fields and acres of oyster reefs. Now it's forever gone. But what oyster does to the ocean is really amazing. It really provides biodiversity and filtration. And I wanted to learn all about oyster, and I love oyster in general. So I just reached out to them. They have this amazing program. You sign up, you get 1,000 oyster seeds, and you basically tend it. So here's a slide on the left side that I have this net organizing it, throw it out to the ocean and let it grow. And I have to tend it once in a while. On the right side is a workshop that's given every month. So the tending involves a lot of cleaning, what they call cubbing, so that you actually need to roll the edges to just make sure that they grow in a nice shape, nice size. Also, once again, just going back to Glenwood has just myriad of family-friendly, open to public, very educational event called Food and Farm. So they're discussing how to make butter out of fresh milk, raw milk, and this is an apiary training, beekeeping. And I attended this amazing farm dinner as well at Glenwood, hosted by Farmer Apprentice program at Glenwood. So with all of that experience, I want to really sit down in front of a computer and what are these people actually going through? What does it mean to be a farmer and farms in not only New York, but in US? So I was just looking at this information in 2012. This is what I based the information off of. The USDA census has this incredible information, and I wanted to see the demographics of the farmers. And there are about 3 million farmers in US. It used to be a lot more. Now it consists about 2% of the labor force. And put it into a really simple number, one farmer used to feed 4 people in 1930s. Back in the days, you're basically feeding your own family. Now one farmer feeds about 155 people. We have in US about 300 plus million people. And if you go back 3 million farmers, that's about 1 to 100 ratio. And plus the international, we export our commodity goods and to other nations. So one farmer feeds 155 people. So I'm putting a lot of importance on farmers, the people who are growing, because how important it is, because they're feeding us. The number of farmers are changing. There's a decrease in number of farmers. 2007 to 2012, it was decreasing, and I believe 2012 to the next cycle, 2017, also has a decrease. At the same time, farmers are getting older, so average age has gotten up since 2012 to 2017. It's 58.6, I believe now. And this graph on the left side looks really dire. And this is really, for me, the most alarming fact about farmers is that you see the light graph, which indicates older farmers, retiring farmers are increasing. There are more and more people are retiring and aging farmers. At the same time, the darker graph shows there are less and less young people who are getting into farming. So I believe that inherited knowledge will forever get lost. So I wanted to really focus on the young beginning farmers. The farms themselves, there are about 2 million farms in US, and they're using about 900 million acres. So there are less number of farms and there are less farmlands as the time goes. And the rate you see here, the change in number of farms, the rate is actually more rapid than the farmland itself, is because the farm itself is getting bigger. They're being consolidated, and the farmland is also getting lost. So I believe there is an American Farmland Trust statistics out there, but I believe we're losing about 3 acres, 2 to 3 acres per minute, which is very dire. Also, the farm economics, the financial aspect of farm. Can I be a millionaire? Can I be wealthy becoming a farmer? The answer is really no, because the average farm income is about $40,000, and the expense income ratio is really high. What it means is that even if you have high revenue, you have to really reinvest in the farming operation. You have to purchase a lot of different things for next season. And again, once again, what was really alarming from 2007 to 2012 is that the production expense rose drastically compared to how the income has risen during that time. So it's at a more rapid rate. And once again, this is basically summarizing how difficult the economy is for the farmers. The median farm income, mean and average is obviously is a different data. 50% of the farmers are earning less and 50 are earning more, but this was the farm income, the median farm income in 2012, minus 1,400. So I found this really funny sort of T-shirt that basically describes how farming is. It's really an art of losing money while you're working constantly out in the field, your physical labor, and then people are really not appreciative of what you do. So, you know, becoming a farmer and being in the farming industry is really, really tough. How about the produce that we consume? So there are a lot of effort growing these produce, but just an average, if you go to any grocery store and pick up an apple, an average age of an apple, and also how far they travel, it was really shocking to me. So I often give out a quiz to my friends and they say average age of an apple is got to be like 2 weeks or 2 months, maybe at most like 6 months, but on average it's about a year. So when you pick up an apple, it's actually about a year old. And the travel is 1,500 miles, so it's traveling quite a lot to get to your dinner table. This is a true image, the state of what our farming is. Back in 60s, when the policy has changed to grow large, consolidate, grow big, Secretary Earl Butz actually encouraged that. So we have a commodity-based monoculture. You can see the CAFOs in the livestock industry. We have a factory farming, basically packaging, processing. And is this where we want to be? Is this really a conventional farming that we're advocating? So looking at those photos, interacting with people, with data, I really wanted to see if there is a solution as an architect, not only designing a environmentally responsible building, but can I actually use my design skill set, my interdisciplinary urban design thinking to create maybe a partial solutions to this problem. So I want to create something between farmers and people living in the city. Can we actually create a place? Can we actually test out a project? So this is an early sort of diagram that I thought of creating my own sort of ecosystem, um, uh, self-sustaining financial model where the Together project could purchase a farmland and build a venue which can host general public for various kinds of agri-tourism events, and maybe it could involve educational components. Maybe it's a farm stay, farm dinner, numerous things that people are interested can possibly host these interests. I know that there is a thirst, and I wanted to address that. And at the same time, on the left side, the farmer gets the farmland for free. And I wanted to really provide a long-term, secure farmland because farmland access is one of the most challenging part as a young farmer. And I wanted to provide that long-term, secure farmland lease and an affordable housing for the farmer to be on the farmland, and an affordable housing could really help. And there could be partially an equity that maybe has involved, and possibly there is a profit sharing in this sort of self-sustaining ecosystem. So this is what I really based my project. And I really wanted to take this to the next level. So I did about 2+ years of searching for farmland in New York, Hudson Valley region. And every weekend I would drag my wife on the rental car and try to find a farmland where I can actually implement this. So I drew an 80-mile radius from New York City. And if we go beyond 80 miles, it may be too far from New York City where we live. So I really identified different farmlands, and we landed on this property in Orange County, where you can see here on the map, it's indicated with the address. The context of that location is near really flourishing agriculture community. Orange County is really known for really a great farming community, and it has a really long history. And you can see it on the lower left side, there is a really special region called Black Dirt region, where the glacier 10,000 years ago has melted and created a swampland. And when they dried up, it basically left a lot of really nutritious nutrient into the ground, and the soil is just amazing. So you can see the left side, and our place indicated with the orange dot is where our farm is located. And this is our property. It's a 16-acre property. You can see that approximation of 4 acres on the bottom side. That's our main field. I'll go into the actual practice by our tenant farmers, and approximately 3 acres on the top side. And there is an amazing hidden isolated part that's about an acre down by the stream that's feeding into the Hudson River. And we have the house in the center of that. We have different greenhouses. So this is one of the renderings that I did early on. I wanted to design something that is contemporary and really have this really great look and design in the field, and integrate the farming and agriculture architecture together. So we have landed on this farmland, but we had to find a great partner farmer. So there is a great website called Hudson Valley Farmland Network, and you can actually post your profile if you're a landowner or you're a farmer. And this is a matchmaking, basically eHarmony for the farmer and the farmland landowners. And through this, I was able to find our partner farmer. And also I reached out to National Young Farmers Coalition, and then I shared my ideas with them and try to see if anyone would be interested or knowing someone who may be interested. and I reached out to them. So we broke ground in 2018. So based on my design, we hired a general contractor, a local person, and we just basically made this with a stick built. And this one of the views. The front views, you can see the silos in the background. This property used to be a dairy farm, so you can see the grain silo in the corner. And what was great about this piece is that because it used to be a dairy farm, we did a soil testing, and it came in as a good soil, and we're ready to actually start the farm. And this is really the current photo of the place. So this is a two-family house that I designed. It looks like a one house, but actually it's divided. There's a party wall in between, and on the left side, the farmers are living, and on the right side, we go there on the weekends. So this is Jack, Melissa, and Phoenix is their daughter, with Daphne, their puppy. And we oftentimes interact, we volunteer, we try to have meals together, we discuss, and their operation is really truly amazing. They really stick to regenerative farming method and the no-till method, and it's just super labor intensive with hand pull tools only, and just going through the transformation of this property from a barren land to a working farm was just an amazing experience, especially during COVID times. We stayed there since March through August, and these are some of the interior shots. I just wanted to share some of the really nice design of the house. I wanted to have this indoor-outdoor living. One on the right side is their apartment. They have 2 bedroom with a loft space. And this is really an overview. This is a drone shot of the hidden acre is Jack and Melissa's farm that you see in the foreground. And you see the silo and also the house in the background. We also have another farm operation. We do have 2 operations. One is Hidden Acre, and the other one is called One Nature. One Nature is based in Beacon, and they have nursery business and also the landscape design business as well. So Brian Quinn is their leader, and they also wanted to reside in our property. So since last year, they are growing the trees, and they basically have the contract with New York State, so they supply to different uh, uh, reservoirs and highways and etc. So they're really knowledgeable about the local plants. So I'm really fortunate to have worked with both of these operations, some of the drone shots. And once again, you can see the no-till method here on the left side. Maybe I can point to my um, point with my mouse here. This is a tarp that basically puts over on the ground, and it basically kills weed because it cuts off the sunlight. And after they lift it up, and they basically burn all the remaining weeds, and then they sow the seeds or even the plantings with this hand pulled equipment, and basically have this amazing effect. Um, you can also see the tarp on the left side here, the plastic. Um, and they do use the cover crop during the resting season so that it really enriches the soil, the biodiversity of the soil, and how they use the compost to build a soil structure is a really giving a healthy soil, which ultimately gives a really fresh, hearty, fresh produce at the end. And they do have edible flower business as well. It's one of a really lucrative business, and they're getting a lot of revenues out of that. So they made it really successful. Some of the photos from the produce. They have wide variety of veggie, from tomatoes to squash. They have an amazing salad mix. Um, Last year, we were able to host a land access workshop organized by Grow NYC and National Young Farmers Coalition. We're always open to providing our place as an educational and also experiential platform. So it was really invigorating to see people's interest and to be able to inspire other people, especially the landowners. If you own a land in your region, why not provide it for young farmers? Just really empower them. Well, we're very fortunate that this year it was featured in New York Times. There was a lot of positive responses and people sharing this to various organizations. And once again, we're very fortunate with the article on Dwell, which describes our process a little bit more in detail. And we're very happy that it had happened this year, especially with there's a lot of discussion around the climate change, global warming, and other things in this pandemic crisis. Okay, so I just wanted to present this. Really, this is a calling for collaboration, possibly your feedback. This is at a point where I want to really expand this to the future endeavors. So I want to open it up to further discussions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eugene. That was very, it's a combination of, let me put my screen on here. It's a combination of a really rich personal story, which I think is oftentimes lacking in these dry research-based exercises. And you've actually brought a very rich personal story, a personal voyage, and you know, as I've told the audience, I've known you for a long time, and one thing about Eugene, he's a very soft-spoken person, but when he's got an idea in his head, there's just no stopping him. So, so I think, so I wanted to kind of, there's some questions that we're having on in the chat, but I wanted to start off by asking you a couple of things about how you see the role of prototyping. You've essentially, what you've done is you had this sort of idea in your head. And, you know, I guess it's, you know, I know that it's not in your mind a one-off situation. It's meant to be a replicable model that you're working to develop. So could you tell the all of us a little bit about the importance of prototyping and what has it started to reveal to you in terms of the replicability of a model like this? And one thing that would be kind of interesting for us to know through the kind of lens of the RCN research is, you know, what are the kinds of research gaps that you're starting to, you know, that are being revealed to you? What do you think would be interesting to study more? What are the kinds of barriers that you've seen? I know you've talked a little bit about farmland access, for example. That's been an issue. But any thoughts about that?
Sure. To answer the first question about the scalability, I did reach out to some of the professors in the business school, and I've shared this this idea with them. And the first thing they said, "Oh, it's going to be very tough to scale this," is because there's a limited number of farmland in New York region, especially Hudson Valley. To get a really nice farmable land, you have to do a lot of research. And same with the farmers. Every farmer is different, and there's limited number of farmers in Hudson Valley region. And match those two, you're really incredibly narrowing down your possibilities. So scalability, I believe, is really limited. But what I was really inspired by meeting with people is that people can resonate themselves with agriculture, and they have different solutions. So for instance, some people were saying, can I actually make this as a small scale? Can I actually have this as a getaway place, but maybe it can involve maybe uh, glamping ideas. Maybe it can be a place where you can have just a small house. It doesn't need to be this scale. That's what I told them. And I think there could be an evolving discussion about how this idea about having the city dwellers who are super interested in the food system and the farmers and farming community and can cohesively and also collaboratively create a solution, not just a mere place or a house, but different programs. Maybe it's a small scale programs. What I really learned from my friend in Louisiana is that it really takes a small scale to start. So in that sense, yes, I want to make sure this gets established, and I think this is really early on. And when this is more solidified, that I want to replicate this further and further. But what I go through this in the first 2 seasons, I learned that there's a lot of growing pain. There needs to be more understanding, more empathy between two different parties. So it's incredibly tough as a landowner and also from the farming side. I believe the research that's one of the reasons why I was really looking forward to present this to the wider audience is can we actually use metrics, for instance? Can we actually monitor what it means to farm regeneratively? Can we actually measure that? Or can we actually gather data they're Jack and Melissa Hiddenacre, they're really living a really healthy life, sustainable life, reducing any plastics that they consume. Also, they're pescatarian, so they're not consuming any meat without any origin. So I want to see if this sort of lifestyle, which can be measured, I think, and try to understand the carbon footprint. Possibly there is a sensing technologies that gets involved in biodiversity of the soil and the produce, how we can measure different produce and the healthiness of the plants, and economic monitor. They're actually going through very tough times as uh, the first and second year. They're investing quite a lot in the infrastructure and equipment, and to recoup their investment, it takes really long time. But what does it really mean to put price tag on their produce? They're spending incredible amount of time researching and planting these. What's the justification on some of the pricing? Can we actually have a newer model, economic model, they can actually make this more sustainable? They're donating a lot of produce that are over harvested to a local community, and they're super interested in helping out, supporting the local community, because traveling to New York obviously takes carbon. They're driving, so how can we actually make this more financially sustainable, I think is another idea that comes into mind.
Great. Thank you. You brought up carbon sustainability and metrics, and Josh Sperling from our network has a question about this. But before asking his question, kind of to fit it into kind of a larger question about the relationship between low carbon region, resiliency, and particularly as we attempt to configure and account for kind of the urban rural systems around food, energy offsets, and transportation sectors and all that. It would seem that if our region is to be low carbon region, and even to the level of net zero, there's some land set aside that would be required to have energy, local energy generation, right? So we would have to generate a certain amount of energy within the local metropolitan region. So to that, so it could be photovoltaics, it could be wind, it could be a variety of things. So some of that land might be located on, agricultural land, perhaps. So Josh Sperling has asked any thinking along the lines of co-locating agriculture and solar opportunities in, say, the New York region. There's been quite a lot of work from NREL by Jordan McNick and others on sort of agrivoltaics, which is like agriculture and photovoltaics. Might this kind of get into the, or help resolve something around, resolve the issue around land set-asides, perhaps, because land would need to be set aside for this type of harvesting. And as Josh says, farms that harvest the sun twice for food and for energy. What do you think about that as a possible way to address the limited agricultural land? And is it even feasible to have PV? I've seen examples, but tell me, what do you think about having PVs on agricultural land?
So I think it's an incredible idea. Actually, the last lunch webinar, I was really inspired by the photovoltaics and the agricultural land. This year, we actually had pretty bad storms, and we lost power at our farm on our property. And for 4 days, we didn't have power. And I didn't think it was too much, but obviously seeing in person, it does tremendous impact on the farming operation. So they actually had to water manually with the collected water, and their walk-in fridge wasn't working. And obviously water, I mentioned, is because the well water, the pump is not working. And there's a lot of high energy cost involved in farm operation, and also from their own apartment. So having to have the photovoltaic, I think it's incredibly helpful as far as providing the energy. But I think the physical infrastructure itself, if possible, could create a synergy. The photovoltaic, the panels themselves, what happens underneath that spatially, and can that actually be used for, I don't know, you're creating a shadow underneath it. Can you actually use that to grow food underneath it? So I think there needs to be a synergy and symbiotic relationship between the energy production and the agricultural production.
Great. Yeah, I mean, there is a question about, and depending on where you are regionally, there are sort of hotter climates where actually having some shading is not necessarily a bad thing especially during the heat of the day. But you know a lot more about this than I do. Yeah, I guess Joshua Foss, who's also part of our network and who did a fantastic presentation also at lunchtime a couple of weeks ago, asked the question, "Thanks, Eugene, this was fantastic. What is next for you and this project? What type of impact and reach are you hoping to have in, say, 5 to 10 years?" And this gets into this question of, what is your vision, Eugene? Like, if, you're not necessarily, I mean, this is sort of very targeted, in terms of the kind of participants, the roles that people have. It's also about sort of New York City residents who are also seeking access to farming and fresh produce and all that. What would be kind of a measure of success for you looking forward beyond yourself, but as it starts to perhaps replicate and how do you see this kind of playing out if it was successful?
Sure, I think it's an excellent question. I ask that myself all the time. I had a sort of long-term vision and short-term vision. The short-term vision, I think I did achieve in the last 4 years, which is to find the farmland, find the partner farmer, and have the farm up and running, and to be able to empower the partner farmer and partner with them is a great milestone. I think at this juncture, I can say that that short-term goal has been reached. My long-term goal is it can take multiple different routes, and that's great thing about having to have this place, this physical place that has a great potential in many different directions. So for instance, I was really looking to host different events possibly next year if the COVID settles down a little bit, that it could be an education component, partner with many of the different organizations who does different workshops could actually happen on our land. We can actually involve different food advocacy groups, food justice group, or even food and beverage industry. They're really influencing a lot of consumption end. So can we actually invite different chefs and create different farm involving different food? So that's an agri-tourism aspect. The research aspect is that because we have this 15-acre farmland with an amazing regenerative farm, can we actually experiment many of the theories, such as photovoltaic, if we can actually find the funding and write a grant and find the funding, then why not test it out on this ground? So I think I do have a really great advantage of utilizing this land because I do have this property that I can take this to a multiple path. So agritourism is one of them. The research-based, grant-based funding to experiment various ideas. I want to really open this up to different general public. It's really core friends and family members and maybe friends of friend who visited this property, but I really would like to, in 5, 10 years, to expand it to different groups and general public so that they can actually learn and be really much more aware of where our food comes from.
Great. There's a question about the investment, the financial investment that is needed to start this type of activity. Could you talk a little bit about that? Yeah.
Sure. During my research, I've really identified different grants and sourcing from USDA, and New York State has various sort of funding sources, and it involves obviously very dedicated and long application procedure. But what I really wanted to advocate is as a person who's really interested in this food and farmland access, can actually a person living in the city do this on his own without any government or any subsidies? And if, let's say, you have a primary home, and if you're an affluent, wealthy individual, can you actually think about buying home land in Hudson Valley region and not in Hamptons, and make this as a viable model for you, because there is a benefits to what you can do with your second home. So that was a sort of a private sector, private individual approach, but there are many of the government source that can supplement this funding in the beginning. The primary investment is the land itself. The land cost varies from place to place, depending on accessibility and resources, but just in general, about $10,000 per acre ish. So in Hudson Valley region, if you're trying to buy a land, then you need to be able to have that funding. And it doesn't have to be two-family home. It can be any other structure that I mentioned previously.
Great. There's a question about how to stay connected to this network that we're all building. So perhaps one of my colleagues can put the link to our RCN network on the chat. So it seems like the food question is a big, complicated question, and you're not necessarily trying to solve the entire, food challenge. But in the kind of carbon footprint question around food, so you're kind of focusing on one aspect of it, which is this sort of model that you've created around second homes and the possibility of linking up with young farmers and all that. But of course, our region requires maybe an industrial scale of food production. I mean, we're talking about, a region of many, many millions of people. So could you talk a little bit about the other strands of this equation and how you sort of see perhaps the work that you're doing can enrich those other kind of larger and industrial scale farming? And I don't mean to exclude the agricultural region around New York State, because those have an important role to play at that kind of larger scale. So any thoughts about that?
It's a really tough question, Jeffrey, and
know.
I'm not sure if I can answer that. And I know I'm really looking forward to next week's webinar, and Kubi obviously will share his experience, but I think it's more of a regional food shed and food systems. But I just think that the food system, and especially the production in Hudson Valley, is so complex. And when I met with many people from different organizations in Hudson Valley, they have their own solutions, maybe because it's so complex that they have to create their own systems and solutions. There's no silver bullet that changes everything all at once. And this is certainly a very niche and very unique, very targeted model that I just created. And everyone has different solutions. So this was my sort of, as an architect, as an academia.
And it sounds like it's an entire suite of strategies that we're talking about here. And you're part of that suite. So I think it's really, really interesting. Cecilia has appeared on our screen. So I think we're towards the end of our session. Cecilia, well, personally, I want to thank you, Eugene, for this fantastic talk, and to all of our listeners and participants. And back to you, Cecilia.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you, Eugene, for the wonderful talk. I think we have a list of questions that we have collected, and unfortunately, we run out of time. I would strongly encourage everyone. I think Eugene's email's there, and you can reach out to the network. Also, join our network to have a continued discussion. This is a problem that's like more than a single one of us can solve. I think we have to collectively think of innovation. We have a large group of students participating also over here. We can encourage them to think about innovation in both technology and also policy fields that can bring in some of these innovations to fruition and broader impact. I think there going to be a continued discussion. I see a lot of interest into this. Next time, it's going to be another topic by Kubi Eckermann in 2 weeks. And I hope you join us for the continued conversation. Eugene, thank you very much for the wonderful talk. And I would like to continue our conversation offline. I'm also interested in probably having a farm somewhere.
I can see you very well working the land. I can see that.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, everybody. And I look forward to seeing you guys for our next talk. And Eugene, thank you very much. And I look forward to more of your exciting work.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eugene. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.